Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Kristen Spindler. I'm the director of IncubatorCTX and a faculty member at Concordia University, Texas. Thanks so much for joining us all today. I'd like to welcome you to our IncubatorCTX speaker series. And today our speaker is Michael Ward Jr. He's the president and CEO of the Austin Urban Technology Movement, and he sits on a number of boards in Central Texas focusing on STEM and workforce development. Among Michael's many experiences during his career, here are just a few. At Oracle in enterprise sales, he led the Black Employee Resource Group. At ADP, he focused on human capital management, specifically sustainability, culture, and productivity. As part of the Austin ecosystem for startups, he built Primal 7, a tech fitness company. He graduated from UNC Chapel Hill, majoring in political science and global studies. And finally, Michael and his wife are expecting their first child any day now. And when we didn't quite get on a little early this morning, I wondered if perhaps they were on their way to the hospital. So we're very grateful to have him here today, especially on an icy day in Austin, Texas. So his talk today centers on bridging the gap in tech for the Black and Hispanic communities. And we're really honored to have him speak with us today. So today our format is Michael's going to take us through his presentation. And then we'll leave some time at the end for question and answers. If you have a question, please type it in the chat and address it to all panelists and all attendees. Julie and I will be monitoring the chat, and we'd like this to be interactive. So we'll keep an eye out for your questions. And if you have one as he's presenting that's pertinent to the topic, go ahead and type that in. So thanks so much. Let's give a warm welcome to Michael. And Michael, I'll turn it over to you. Thank you.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Kristen, and shout out to the Incubator and just Concordia Network overall. I'm very excited to be here today because I love talking about the work that I do. And I love talking about the work that we're doing inside this space to really make a difference. First, before I jump in, I do want to say that, Oracle really opened up my eyes to what the tech industry has. And it talked about all the different opportunities inside the tech space, but it also shows some of the challenges inside the tech space. And some of the main challenges that I've realized inside the tech space is that, unfortunately, there's a disconnect between the way that we are currently going about recruiting, the way we're going about education, the way we're talking about training for the tech industry. And the reason why that is because the tech industry has so many jobs that are available, but not enough people that are interested, that have the skills and have the experience to fit the need of the tech industry. So AUTM HQ, also known as Austin Urban Technology Movement, we're increasing diversity inside the tech space, but we're also eliminating the skills gap inside the industry. And our ultimate goal is to create this tech ecosystem where individuals can go from training to getting the skills to getting the experience to fill the needs of the tech job and fill the needs of the tech community by filling the jobs across the space. So at AUTM HQ, we focus on workforce development, making sure people get the skills that they need to enter the tech space. We focus on networking, making sure that those that are looking for jobs can actually connect with employers, connect with hiring managers, but also those that are inside of the industry can connect with other people that look like them, right? So if you're a tech entrepreneur, great, let us introduce you to your next hire, right? If you are someone that's a techie looking to build something, great, let's connect with someone that could work with you on that project. So let's really make sure that we're creating an ecosystem where people can network inside that space and get to know one another. And then last but not least is job placement, right? Once you train people and they're now, looking to enter the tech space, great, let's get them the job. Let's make sure that they become self-sustaining so that individuals can go from knowing no experience or some experience to being techies, being self-sustaining individuals inside the tech space and really understanding what it means to be a part of technology, right? They can begin to have conversations outside of just, hey, I need a computer or I need internet access, but we can have conversations around quantum computing, conversations around blockchain, conversations around IoT, Internet of Things, and how does that integrate with what we're doing, right? Like those are the type of conversations that we need to have. And in order for us to get there, we have to make sure that the workforce development tech ecosystem is actually built. so individuals can fill the seats that we see across the space. So this is Amber. Amber was an individual that came to one of our many events that we've had when we first started, because when we first started back in 2016, our focus was to connect individuals that already had the skills, already had the experience with jobs, right? When I was at Oracle, I was leading their internal employee resource group for their Black employees, and I wanted to make sure that they were able to get their foot in the door. So when we've connected with other employee resource groups, we realized that we had a very similar goal. We wanted to make sure that our community members that were graduating from all these universities, graduating from all these different programs with the skills, with the experience, was able to get in the door and secure their job. And that's exactly what happened with Amber. Amber attended our events. She was able to get plugged in with an employer, and now she handles HR when it comes into Austin Independent School District. So Amber is one of the individuals that have gone through our program, that have come to our events in order to make their way inside of the tech space. So if you would like to see the stories of our Automites, please go to our website, which is autmhq.org/Automites, and you can see the different stories of the Automites from as young as 16 all the way as old as 55 in our training program, getting the skills to be a part of the tech industry. So why tech? I know I talked about technology, but why is technology the real focus? The reason why technology, because that's how I got started, and I have to give a shout out to my recruiter at Oracle that tapped me on the shoulder right when I was about to graduate from the University of North Carolina. My goal was to be a foreign officer. I wanted to be an ambassador. I majored in political science and global studies, so my mindset was not tech at all. Even to this day, I still laugh and say that I'm technically not technical, even though I do have a lot of discussions around technical skills, but that's not really where my expertise was. But when I started working at Oracle and I realized that my experience wasn't just my own experience, there were actually a lot of people that didn't know about technology, a lot of people that didn't have a recruiter encouraging them to go down that pathway. So once I really got behind the scenes, at Oracle and into the tech industry, we realized that there's just not enough talent inside the space, right? When you look at those that are Black and Hispanic inside of the industry, they account for about 15% of those that are Black and Hispanic, but they account for more than 30% of the entire US population, right? So there's a significant difference between those that are part of the US population versus those that are Black and Hispanic within inside the industry. But then the second reason is that there's just not enough talent to meet demand across the board. So looking at the tech postings that we have, this is information from CompTIA, is that there's close to 4 million job openings in tech, like close to 4 million, and there's slightly under 800,000 for emerging technology. So just looking at the demand, like this is 4 million jobs that are open and unfilled. Why do you think that we have the issues that we have inside the tech space, right? There's not enough of those that are Black and Hispanic. But even if you were to hire everybody that has the skills, right? So Black, Hispanic, white, Asian, indigenous, get everybody enrolled inside the tech space, we will still have millions of jobs available. And the reason why that's so important is because the tech industry is actually integrating and connecting to other industries. So now the conversations we're having is around telehealth, right? COVID-19 has really exposed the importance of telehealth. So now there's a huge focus on really engaging technology in our healthcare system. But then there's also edtech, right? COVID-19 has shown the need for education technology. How are we leveraging AI in our education system? How are we leveraging platforms and devices and tools in our education system, right? What does that look like so we can really see this adoption of technology, this adoption of new ways of doing things for our community to do what? To fill the need, right? Because there are close to 4 million jobs available inside of the tech space. So then when we look at the market overall, we realize that technology is very wide, right? When people talk about technology, it's pretty much saying like, what car do you want to drive? Yeah, you could choose any vehicle you want, but then let's get down to the details. Do you want a Beamer? Do you want a Bentley? Do you want a Honda? Do you want a Toyota? Once you select the make, okay, what model do you want, right? If you select Honda, do you want an Accord or do you want a Civic, right? Do you want an SUV or do you want a truck? That's the same as I think for technology. Technology is just a bucket. But then when we get down into the specifics, you could do software engineering, you could do cybersecurity, you could do IT, right? You could do cloud, right? These are all different types of options that are in demand right now inside the tech space. So if you're someone who is interested in technology, great, I love it. Let's have a conversation, right? If you're someone who's not engaged in technology, don't care about technology, we really need to talk. because technology is what is the next revolution. Technology is where the trend is going, right? So back in the day, people used to say, oh, be a doctor, be a lawyer. Nothing wrong with those jobs, nothing wrong with those occupations. However, now the conversation is, oh, be a programmer, be a coder, right? Be a systems analyst, right? Let's talk about some technical skills that you can have, because the upside is just so much more just given the opportunities. So what we're seeing across the market is that the technology industry is significantly expanding, and the skills are in demand because the individuals that are going through several different programs, they're just not meeting that demand, given how big the need is. And as we talk about the trends in technology, now we want to talk about what are the demographic trends though, right? And when you look at those that are coming into our workforce, right, those that are under the age of 16, under the age of 18, those individuals are predominantly Black and Hispanic. So now we see from 2016, right, from 2016, this data point, majority of the individuals that were non-Hispanic white, that was 51.1%. But it's forecasted by 2060, those that are non-Hispanic white are going to drop to about 36%. And those that are Hispanic and Black, those are going to increase. And we're seeing it here in Texas, right? The 2 additional congressional seats that were added because of the increase of Hispanic population in Texas, right? So this idea that the workforce is being predominantly Black and Hispanic, but we're not training those that are Black and Hispanic to meet the need, well, in the future, we're going to have a worse problem that we have today, that individuals just don't have the skills to meet this demand, which is then going to impact the businesses and the revenue that businesses can bring in to the country, right, or to the state. And when you look on the right-hand side, looking at Apple, Facebook, Google, Microsoft, these are some of the large tech players in town. You could see that from 2014 to 2019, or even 2018, there was this huge focus on diversity, equity, inclusion, right? This huge focus on, yes, we want to develop and train our community members. We want to get them enrolled into our companies and entry level, mid-level, senior level. Yes, let's do all the things. But then when you look at the data and you look, okay, well, what was that change? For Apple, you look at, they didn't have any change for the Black community. They had one change for the Hispanic community. You look at Facebook from 2014 to 2019, there is a slight change, but this change wasn't even large enough to really make a dent, which is why you don't even see that as slight change in the data set there. But when you look at Google from 2014 to 2019, same thing. There's a huge change when it comes down to increasing diversity around gender, right? There's definitely been a huge focus around that. There's even been a focus about getting more people to entry-level roles, right? But increase in gender and increase in entry-level roles, that's not going to increase diversity across the entire tech industry, right? We need to do a lot more when it comes down to positions. We need to start talking about not just technical roles, but also non-technical roles that also can happen inside of the industry. And so as we begin to think about technology, let's not just think about those that already have degrees. Let's talk about those that are entering the tech industry. Let's talk about those that are transitioning from one industry to another, right? Maybe education going into tech, or going from finance going into tech, or going from politics to get into tech, right? We're seeing this huge shift of individuals seeing the opportunities that technology has because of the different ways you can get plugged in and can get engaged. So I do have my chat open here. So I would love to just see from you all. I would love a 1 if you are already in tech, right? Let me see those that are already in tech. If you are interested in tech, let me get some 2s, right? For those that are interested, you're thinking you may be on the fence, let me see some 2s. And if you're already in tech, let me see some 1s. So then what is it that we're actually doing on our side, right? And when we talk about this workforce development tech ecosystem, what does that really mean? Number 1, we increase access and exposure, right? That is the number 1 thing that we do, because we know there are a lot more people that do not care about tech, that are not interested about tech, that have never heard about tech, than there are of those that are already in the industry, right? So a lot of our focus is around let's expose people to the opportunities in tech. And we do that through our newsletter. So I encourage you all to sign up for our weekly newsletter. We do that through our programs such as Horizons and Day in a Life, where you can see Black and Hispanic techies doing great work inside this space. But then you can also see what is it like at their company, right? So like, what does a data analyst do at Oracle? What does a software engineer do at BigCommerce, right? What does a HR person do at Indeed, right? Let's begin to have these discussions so you can actually see yourself inside that space. Number two, upskill and reskill, plain and simple. So we have hard and soft skills training. We have our Autumn HQ Learn app, which I encourage you all to go and get free access to resources when it comes down to technical training. We provide on-the-job training, internships, boot camps, and apprenticeships. So when it comes down to upskill and reskill, we remove any barrier that make it difficult for people to enter the industry and show them that pathway. So I see Dagny, you got it too. You're interested? Great. Let's talk about technology. I see that Mo's already in tech. Then great, Mo, continue being in tech and bring more people to the conversation, right? Tell your mom, tell your dad, tell your brother, tell your sister, tell everybody about why you're in tech and why they should also be in tech, right? And that's where number one and number two come for us. We expose people to tech, and then once they're interested, great, here goes the pathways for you to get started. Number three, build social capital. Now, we're all about expanding your network, right? If you live in a specific area, well, then most likely you're only going to access what's in your area. A lot of times, especially here in Austin, in Central Texas, the resources can be segregated, right? The resources on one side of the town is not the same resource on the other side of the town. So that's where we want to connect people that may have more privilege than others. We want to connect people that may have more experience than others. We want to connect people that may have more skills than others so that they can learn from each other, right? Have their cultural exchange and begin to build that social capital. So whether it's a mentor, whether it's connecting you with our employer partners, whether it's attending our Rethink Austin event that we have upcoming on March 12th at South by Southwest. These are great opportunities for you to get plugged into the ecosystem so that when we start to think and talk about technology, your mind isn't immediately going to someone who's white, someone who's Asian, someone who's male. Like that's only a piece of the industry, right? We want people to think about the tech industry as part of the entire community. So it doesn't matter if you're K through 12, it doesn't matter if you're young or old, it doesn't matter if you have a technical degree or you're just using a computer to do your job, right? All of that is part of the industry, and we really want to make sure that people understand that. And then last but not least, we advocate. So we have a current petition, our Texas Technology for All petition. We promote individuals getting access to technology, people getting access to technical training, and people getting access to job opportunities inside the tech space. I want to say in March of 2020, April 2020, we realized that a lot of individuals that were working several different types of jobs, some of them either were let go, some of them, had to look for alternative options because what they're currently doing was not able to accommodate what was going on in the pandemic, right? We see businesses close down, but for the most part, if you were inside the tech space, all you did was close your computer and go home. And now you're working remotely, still bringing in a paycheck, still getting benefits, don't have to worry about where your next check is going to come from. We don't have to worry about all these extra bills and how you're going to pay them because you still have a job, you're still going. If you were an entrepreneur that had a tech business, well, you probably increased sales, right? You probably increased activity during the time where some businesses were closing, right? And just looking at 2020 alone, being a part of the tech industry is so crucial because it allows you to continue to bring in income. And if you're a business owner, it allows you to still generate business, right? And those are the two main things when it comes down to being self-sustaining. You got to make sure you're able to still accommodate and still pursue whatever you want to pursue for your goals. So what does it mean to become an Autumn Mind, right? And an Autumn Mind are individuals that are coming to our program saying, hey, I want to get into tech, right? I want to be a part of this booming economy that's growing in Central Texas, that's growing across the world. Like, how can I be a part of that? That's a great question. Well, number one, come to us for hard and soft skills training, right? That's one of the main reasons why people engage with us. They come to us for either some credentials, whether it's a certification, whether it's a certificate, and we have several different options around hard skills development. But what we're realizing is that hard skills development by itself isn't going to get you in the door, right? Like hard skills allows you to talk about things, right? Now, if I use different terminology, you and I are on the same page. But hard skills by itself isn't going to make you any different than someone else that have the same exact skills as you. That's where soft skills training comes into play, right? How's your time management? How's your communication skills? How's your leadership skills, right? Those things combined gives you a little edge over the competition. But that's just one piece of what we do. And that's where a lot of training providers, focus. They focus on hard skills and or soft skills. But then from our standpoint, we also focus on the-job training. right? Because employers sometimes say, oh, you don't have the experience. Fine, let's give you the experience. Then we have mentorship matching. Let's connect with a sponsor. Let's connect with an advocate, someone who's going to fight on your behalf in whatever you want them to fight for, right? You know, your mentor is going to guide you on your journey in whatever direction you want them to go with. So we connect all of our Automites with both career coaches and with occupational mentors to guide them on their career journey in tech. We have our Horizons and our Day in a Life program, which I'll get to in a little bit throughout this presentation. But then we also have our networking events, right? Let's connect with other people. So when you walk into a room, you see a whole bunch of individuals that look just like you. And then last but not least, we do community service. So we're all about volunteering. We're all about giving back to the community and allowing the circle to be complete. Right. So once you get trained, once you get placed, once you get employed, and now you're self-sustaining, great. Come back and tell your story. Come help us get more people trained, more people placed, more people employed, rinse and repeat. Right. That's the ecosystem that we're talking about, so that more and more individuals can actually participate and be engaged when it comes to tech opportunities. So then I spoke about increasing exposure, and I talked about some of our events, some of our programs. So here goes some of them. In the middle there, this is pre-COVID. This was when we were at IBM, and at IBM, we were doing a design thinking workshop and talking about how do we address challenges and what is the process that an IBM employee will go through to create these solutions. In the top right corner, that's us doing our Day in a Life event. This one was virtual. We were doing this with Entrepreneurs Foundation and Storable, talking about what are the specific occupation and the day in the life of a Storable employee. And then in the bottom right corner, that was our cohort series, where we were talking with Road to Hire about their new program that we've added to our program. So now Road to Hire, one of our partners, came and discussed, if you want to get into tech, here goes this pathway. And if this pathway is for you, great, let's have those discussions. So these are the types of events that we do to really make sure that we are targeting the entire community, right? So if you are under the age of 16, great, let's talk to you about a mentor. Let's get you excited. Let's get you interested. And then once you are over the age of 16, great. Now that you're interested, now that you're excited, let's talk about training. Let's talk about jobs. Let's talk about what you want to do inside this space now that you're jazzed up and you're excited about technology, right? And now we can begin to have some conversation about what's going on inside this space. Then for our building social capital, well, these are the events that we've done. So on the left-hand side, we have our 12 days of autumn. So every December, we have 12 days of events and programming to increase diversity inside the tech space and expand the digital equity. So we've done a run for digital equity. We've done several different volunteer opportunities with our partners, and you can actually see that one in the middle. That's Microsoft. So Microsoft is one of our partners, and Microsoft employees, they provided mock interviews, they provided salary negotiation, and they provided resume review workshops for our Automites, for those that are going through our program. And then once that was completed, those same employees are showing those Automites where to apply for the jobs through the Microsoft job board or through our own job board that we have as well. And then last but not least, on the right-hand side, we have Rethink Austin. And Rethink Austin is our annual event that we do. This is the 4th year that we're doing Rethink Austin. So please stay tuned, because our next upcoming event is on March 12th. We're very excited for what that looks like. Y'all are gonna be very, very intrigued. So if you are here in Austin, please come out to Rethink Austin. It will also be virtual. So it will be a hybrid event for those that are unable to attend. Oh, I see a question here. So it says, so it says, hi, Michael, my name is Jasmine. I'm a data scientist, startup founder. I wanted to know your thoughts on expanding tech education and skills development for adults from underrepresented communities. Oh, that is all that we do. A lot of our individuals right now that are coming for workforce development, they're typically between the ages of 18 and 35. That is where majority of our demographics fall under, but we do have individuals under the age of 18 and some over the age of 35 as well that are also engaged in our program. So we do prioritize those that are Black and Hispanic, because those that are Black and Hispanic here in the United States make about $30,000 less in median income than their white and Asian counterparts. So because of that, we do prioritize those that are Black and Hispanic, but right now about 17% of our audience is white and Asian, right? So we do work with the entire community, but we do prioritize those that are more in need. And I think your second point here, a lot of programs tend to focus solely on children, which I completely agree with you on. Yeah, so I completely agree with you on this aspect, and this is Jasmine. So Jasmine and I share a very similar sentiment that we spend so much time and energy focusing on children, when my response to that is, well, the reason why you're focusing on the children is because the adults and the parents aren't self-sustaining, right? So if the adults were able to take care of themselves, well, then that will trickle down into their children, right? And that's my conversation about that, especially when I'm thinking about employers. Employers aren't trying to hire for internships and apprenticeships, even though some are, but for the most part, employers want to hire full-time roles today. Like they need someone to come in with the skills, with the experience to fill a need so that they can move on to other projects, other initiatives. So with that being said, the demand for skills development really should be focusing around adults, because the adults have bills to pay, they have expenses, and they're the ones that are most likely not being able to do all they need to do. Go next. Oh, and I see another question here. How do you feel the Brian Flores situation in NFL parallels hiring practices in the tech space from a D&I perspective? Oh, that's a great point. It's actually funny you bring that up. And I bring that up because what we're seeing across the board, regardless of the industry, is that there's a disconnect between the leadership, right? And I'm going to say entry level, right? So those that are doing the grunt work versus those that are leaders. When you look across the board at companies, at organizations, they are predominantly white and predominantly male across the board. But then when you look at the people that they serve, sometimes they serve those that are underserved. Sometimes they serve those that are underrepresented. Sometimes they serve those that are inside their state or outside their state. But there's a disconnect when we talk about upward mobility, right? So if your organization is predominantly white, predominantly male, but then you are targeting the work of those that are Black and Hispanic, or you're looking to increase diversity, but then when we look at your leadership and we look at your staff, but it doesn't represent the same audiences that you're looking for. That is one of the reasons why that we have the challenges that we see today, and we have the numbers that we have today, is that a lot of these organizations are just not led by the right people when it comes down to the work that they're trying to do, right? So here at Autumn HQ, we're all about diversity, right? Everybody in our company is, at least from a staff perspective, is Black and Hispanic. From a volunteer perspective, we definitely see some individuals that are white, some individuals that are Asian, but the work that we're doing is really centered around the same target audiences that we're looking to work with and engage with. And it just continues to evolve. So as we do engage with more employees, as we do engage in more partners, we're having those conversations, right? And what does your leadership look like? What does your internal upward mobility look like for these employees? Not just at entry level, but entry level, mid-level, and senior level. Right? And how are you diversifying your board? So the last thing I'll say on that is, be selective with where you work and be selective with who you partner with, because we don't partner with everybody and we don't work with everybody because of that reason. So on this screen, what you're looking at now is our Texas Technology for All petition. I did mention that right now we have an ongoing petition, so please do sign it if you do support digital equity. Because here in Texas, 1 out of 3 households do not have internet access. So because of that, it makes it very difficult for us to do our job. So we work with several different service providers. We work with AT&T, we work with Spectrum, we work with other organizations and other governmental agencies here in Texas, focused around broadband expansion, broadband adoption, computer adoption, right? Computer expansion, and making sure people have what they need. So please support and please share if this is, right up your alley. And as you can see from the picture on the right-hand side, that was when we were at the African American Youth Harvest Foundation. We were doing one of our device distributions out of their computer lab. And of course, this was during COVID. So you see that, yes, we're during a pandemic and people still have needs, right? People still need computers, people still need to work. Let's go ahead and make that happen. So another question I see here is, when should a Hispanic-based startup be looking for grant monies as compared to VC funding? Oh, Mark, I could connect with somebody who could really have a conversation with you on that. What I can do, I could share my own experience. So I have a corporate background, but I left corporate America to launch a 501c3. So we are not a for-profit business, we are a nonprofit. In the first year of being formalized, right? So we started in 2016, but from 2016 to 2019, we were an informal organization. In 2019, once I formalized and I actually filed my paperwork with the Secretary of State, at that time, my focus was not on VC or investing, right? Like that was not my focus. My focus was just around brand recognition and doing the work that I wanted to do. Because I was focused on brand recognition, money came, right? So because of that, I wasn't focused on, oh, let me go ahead and get revenue. Instead, let me show impact. And if you're an Hispanic-led organization, I would recommend to do the same, focus on showing the impact, but then start to build relationships with the grants, with the funders, with the investors that you do want to work with, so that by the time you do ask, you already have the impact to show for the work that you're doing. So I would always start with grants and donations versus VCs at an initial stage. And then once you get to a certain size, to a certain revenue, to a certain level, then it makes sense to go after VCs. And we can have another conversation about that. Please reach out. I'll drop my my email, my LinkedIn. I could connect you to my contacts that are really engaged on the entrepreneurship side. So the next thing is that here goes a list of our partners, because as I mentioned, we are building the tech ecosystem, right? So if you are an employer such as Microsoft, such as NI, great. I love those two organizations because they treat us very well, but we need more employers, right? We need employers that have jobs openings, that are interested in workforce development, that have internships, have apprenticeships, right? That are here in Texas, but also across the world. We need employers, large, small, medium-sized, all employers that just understand they have a role to play, right? And if you're an employer that is willing to play that role, providing jobs, providing personnel, providing resources, providing funding, great, let's talk, right? Because employers play a huge role inside of this ecosystem. But employers are just one piece, right? And employers by themselves can't do it, which is why sometimes you may hear an employer say, oh, I can't find the talent, or I can find this type of person, right? Oh, I need help with this project. Can you connect with our contractor, because we don't have one, that works with us in-house or through our network. So because employers say that, we realize that an employer by themselves isn't going to have the solution. But when you connect with an employer, with other organizations, now you start to see the magic happen, right? So that's why we work with employers. Michael and Susan Dell Foundation is one of our organizations that have supported us, and we love Michael and Susan Dell Foundation. But you also see United Way, ATX, as another organization. You also see BCL, Business Community Lenders, as another organization, right? These are entities that are engaging with the same exact audiences that we're engaging with. So now when an employer says, oh, I can't find talent, it's like, time out, what do you mean? Look at all the organizations that we're working with that has nothing but talent, right? Let's unpack that a little bit to make sure we're working together. Outside of organizations, we also have institutions. So you see ACC and UT on there. I love ACC. I love the great work that Austin Community College is doing. And I'm excited for what we have in store for the community for this year. But institutions play a huge role in this aspect, right? Because they either have curriculum that we can leverage, or they have participants that need to find a job. And a lot of times the career services in these institutions may not have the connection to tech employers, right? They may have connection to other employers, but because technology is so new and so expansive, that there may not be those opportunities for them. So that's where we come in to really play that role of connecting institutions with employers, with organizations, and of course, with other governmental agencies, right? And that's why you see the City of Boston logo on there as well, because we do great work with the City of Boston. As of recently, I was just added to the IT caucus for the Texas House, all connected to broadband expansion, digital equity, and workforce development jobs. So all these different stakeholders together, like that's the ecosystem that we're building, right? We're making sure that everybody is able to get connected, get plugged in, and help you get from your next point. And I think I missed a question. Oh, no question, but what a great point, Michael. Diversity and having an open ear to ideas and needs of a diverse workforce is so crucial from the top up. Yeah, exactly, right? And because we're really looking to solve this problem, we can't talk to everybody who is trying to figure out what is they want to do, right? Here in Texas, 1 out of 3 households have internet access. About 4 million people live in poverty. And here in Austin, there's a huge focus to move 10,000 people out of poverty, right? So City of Boston, 10,000, Texas, 4 million. but 1 out of 3 don't have internet. So think about all those things together. It's like we have a long way to go to solve this problem, and we need partners that are interested in solving that problem versus just talking about the problem over and over and over and over again. And that's it. So I would encourage you all to please connect with us, follow us on social. You can sign up to our newsletter and see the different topics that we have, because our newsletter always focus on tech trends, like what's happening inside the tech ecosystem, what's happening in Texas, what's happening in the United States, what's happening across the border, right? In other countries across the world. So please stay in touch. Please reach out on social and let's engage. Kristen, I will hand it back to you, but I'm going to go through the chat as well and see if I missed anything.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much. I had a question for our students. Concordia is a Hispanic serving institution. And so our students, whether they're studying business or computer science or arts and sciences, like you did with political science, they want to get into these high growth tech jobs. So what advice would you have for them, whatever their background is, even if they're not, specifically thinking of themselves as techies? Where should they be thinking? Where should they be starting? And where should they be networking?
Sure, that's a great question. So the first I'm going to say is, please apply through jobs in our job board. So members of my team, please drop the link inside the chat feed for everybody. And on our job board, we have different types of positions, right? We have entry level, we have senior level, mid level, we have internships, we have apprenticeships. So my number one recommendation would be to go ahead and apply for jobs on our job board. The second thing I would say is that if you see their logo on our partners page, really apply for those jobs because we have a relationship with them, right? So all of our employer partners, we meet with them, I want to say weekly or every 2 weeks, we engage with our employer partners. So our team is also working on your behalf. So if you do see a position on the job board that you applied, please connect with our program department. Like allow us to work with you, right? Allow us to be your partners to make sure you get the right opportunity. So our partners are Microsoft, National Instruments, IBM, BigCommerce, Solemn, Dropbox, and Google, right? Those are the 7 partners that we have the best relationships with. And I would recommend anybody to apply for those jobs and let our team know. Now, when it comes down to getting in the door, right? Like this is now where it gets a little bit more difficult, but it's going to come down to either the credentials that you have, whether the degrees, the certifications, the certificates, paired with the experience, right? So if you don't have the experience, go and get the experience, right? Go and get an internship. You can even volunteer to connect with your internship, right? I don't encourage anyone who needs to bring in a paycheck to go volunteer. That's not what I'm saying. But if there's a great opportunity, right, and you may not want to commit a full time or a lot of time to it, just volunteer once a month, right? Just to get your foot in the door, just so you can start to be a part of like what they're doing and to gain that experience. The next thing I would say is attend events. Like attending an event is one of the best things you can do because you get to network and meet people. So if you are looking for a job, if you are looking for an opportunity, go come to an event because you may meet that hiring manager. You may meet that recruiter that's going to know what you're looking for, and now you can build that relationship with them. And even if they don't have something for you right now, you can still tell them, hey, I'm looking for XYZ, can you help me, get you, right? What does that look like? Can you connect me with someone else? So apply for jobs on our job board, prioritize the employers that we already have relationships with, network by attending events, and then going on from there. And those would be my recommendations. Oh, and the experience, right? So volunteer, get an internship, and go ahead and make that happen. And then I see here from Jasmine. Jasmine also had a question, is that how have you overcome discrimination in the workplace just to do your job, perpetuate your voice, and build, if any? That's a great question. And a lot of our events around Horizons is really geared around the experiences of Black and Hispanic employees. So my number one recommendation would be, if you are unhappy where you're working, you should leave your job, 100%. And that's why you've seen this past few months or so, this past few years, this exodus of corporate America and people leaving jobs. Because when everybody closed down, everybody worked remotely and worked virtually, right? People started to realize the type of life-work balance they wanted to have, right? People actually didn't want to have a work-life balance. They wanted to have a whole life excellence, right? So how can I bring my full self to my company, right? How can I fully engage with the culture here and add, my personality to this space? If you don't feel comfortable doing that, then you should leave. And that's one of the reasons why I left Oracle, right? Because there was a cultural disconnect with me and at least the office, in Austin, that I decided to leave and go make that journey. But not all companies are like that, right? There are great companies out there doing the work. So I would encourage you to go and find the company that is a right fit for you, and in order to explore that option. Now, I know that's going to take some time. So in the meantime, while you're exploring other options, reach out to HR, right? See what their policies are for discrimination or for any type of internal conflicts. If you all do not have an employee resource group or an affinity group or a business resource group, create one, right? Create those opportunities inside of your company. So if you do decide to stay there and you want to stay there, well, now you're creating the checks and balances or the accountability measures by bringing everybody to the conversation, to the table. So I would encourage you to connect with HR. I would encourage you to create an ERG or tap into your ERGs and then look for other opportunities, because there are some companies, there are some people you just can't change, right? Regardless of what you do, but you can at least educate, show them, and have those hard discussions and go on from there. I'm just looking, okay. Yeah, I think I got all the questions, but I'm going through the chat. So Kristen, if I missed one, please let me know. Oh, so I see, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So I see one from Julia. Do we work with any tech companies in Dallas? I'm going to say we do not work with any tech companies that I know of that are headquarters in Dallas, but a lot of the employers that we work with have Dallas offices, right? Even our program director is stationed out of Dallas. So that's where I see those opportunities increasing, because once employers realize that we're not just in Texas, that we're right now, we're currently in 8 states and 6 countries. The moment we mention that, the conversation changes from just a local conversation to a global one, right? Like, how can we tap into all their offices and do the programming that we're doing here in those locations as well? So as of right now, I don't believe anyone is headquarters there, but they do have offices in those areas. Oh, and as of recently, actually just connected with Independent Financial, which is a bank for fintech. So having a fintech conversation, and fintech is financial technology for those that don't know. But with Independent Financial, they're stationed in McKinney. So they're north of Dallas, and we're moving forward with solidifying that partnership around technical jobs in the banking industry. So if you're in that area, please circle back with us and just note, McKinney, Dallas, and we'll go from there. All right. Jasmine said she's going to connect with us. Looking forward to it, Jasmine. Can't wait to see you come through in our emails. And then I see another question here from Donna Hoffman. I feel like I've benefited from undoing racism and undoing white supremacy trainings I've taken as a white person. Do you see any of the large partners providing this type of background awareness training with their current employees, and especially with execs as hiring leadership? Do you think that would be valuable? So definitely see employers taking this approach. I see several employers have an entire diversity, equity, inclusion initiative, right? They want to do things internally. How can we train our employees? How can we remove some of the implicit bias? Let's go ahead and have that conversation. And one company that comes to mind is Heuristic. Heuristic is one of our partners that actually work with employers directly around their internal practices when it comes down to DEI. But then we're also seeing employers do the same thing externally now, right? So they want to take what they're learning from their own system, right? Their own processes, their own situation. And now they want to be more impactful and more direct inside of the communities. So now I've seen different employers create a whole philanthropy arm to support nonprofits doing this work, right? I see employers remove some of their restrictions on the funding that they offer to make it easier for nonprofits to leverage those funds, right? So I do see that those training programs are definitely beneficial, but they won't be beneficial to everybody, right? Because there is definitely this disconnect that, I'm gonna say this assumption that if you are Black and Hispanic, you also should be taking classes around racism, right? And that right there is a huge topic of discussion, because if an individual doesn't come from a place of power, well, then how does that conversation differ from someone who feels like they're being oppressed and exploited versus someone who doesn't feel like they're being oppressed and exploited, right? There's a disconnect there. I mean, that's what employers are seeing. Employers are realizing that if I'm going to have an undoing racism workshop, well, that workshop may be received one way by those that are white versus from those that are non-white. And that's where the discussion kind of, breaks down a little bit internally. But those things are kind of coming to the surface, that solving this problem is not a one size fit all, right? We may have to tweak it, change it for this demographic, for this age range, for this zip code, based on what's happening in those areas, in those regions. And then I have another question here is, what impact does Power BI and other data manipulation / report creation software have on the tech industry? That's a great question. And I go back to my words at Oracle that says, bad data in, bad data out, right? So I love data. Data can tell an amazing story, but if you're not double checking the data itself, well, then the data can be misused, right? Excuse me. And now individuals will actually leverage the data to tell the wrong story in order to make the point that they want to make. So when people see data now it's about understanding what the data really is telling you and unpacking that data. So one company that comes to mind is Measure. Measure does great work in the city of Austin and even in DC and Dallas as well. And they're all about correctly categorizing data, telling the story that you want the data to share, and then ensuring that you are checking the data to make sure it is valid through an entire process. So Measure, that is one organization that does great work around data management. We currently are a Microsoft shop, so we do use Power BI. And I love Power BI just from a visual component, because a lot of individuals are visuals, right? So when you have a pie chart or bar graph, you break it down by percentages, it allows you to tell that story. So data and big data is adding to what the tech industry is, because a lot of the solutions from the tech space rely on data, right? Whether it's AI, whether it's coding, whether it's any type of reporting, all that aspects come to data and how we use it, how we engage with it. And then you just said like data manipulation. That is, how do I say this? My response to that would be, we want to ensure that the individuals collecting the data themselves, right, is part of the community that the data is representing, all right? So we see that there is a huge focus around security products or security systems being created. And some of the algorithms inside of the security systems, they would classify people as a quote unquote criminal, clearly just solely on the color of their skin, right? And that was being seeped into the actual system itself. Well, then now you've created this security system that has its own implicit bias, right? Like those are the things that we want to avoid beforehand, versus having products and services go to market. And then now we're trying to fix mistakes when all of this should have been done during the R&D stage, research and development. Okay, yeah, I think I got caught up with all their questions. But if you do have any more, please drop them inside the chat. I would love to get to those. But the last thing that I would say is that if you are interested in technology, come and talk to us. If you are not interested in technology, please come and talk to us, right? Because we want to make sure that people just fully understand what the options are inside this space. But Kristen, I'll hand it off to you.
Great. Well, Michael, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it. Marquita as well, and Julia. Thank you also for sharing all these resources with us. And everybody who's on this call, thanks for spending your time with us on a wintry afternoon in Austin. Please link in with Michael and his organization, get on their mailing list. If you're students and you're interested in tech jobs, please follow up. These guys are great resources and they're doing a really wonderful job in Austin and beyond. So again, thanks for joining us, and everybody have a great afternoon. Stay safe if you're out there on the roads. Thank you.